Do I need to check 1, 2 also?
Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the 5-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, June 27th. LA Galaxy getting ready to face off against the first of their 2 rivalry matches. San Jose coming up this weekend as the Galaxy will travel up to Stanford Stadium for that game and then back home July 4th for the Rose Bowl in El Trafico. It's an exciting time if you're an LA Galaxy fan. Tied for first in the Western Conference. Galaxy just creeping closer and closer to securing that playoff spot through 20 games played. So we have a lot to get to and a lot to talk about. And we're so glad to have him back. We're glad to have him back here after he got done with all his debate prep and all that fun stuff. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right. I don't know, if the debate really prepped me for this, but I guess it can't be much worse, right? Is that how we're going to look at this?
Yeah.
We're not going to be the worst 2 guys you see staring at a screen today?
We're at least both awake. Let's put it that way. And we'll probably be telling mostly the truth tonight, so that's good.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah,
like
mostly, right? We're there's some opinions in here that'll be wrong for sure. I was wrong whenever I said there was 0 chance the LA Galaxy would beat RSL at RSL.
You know who wasn't wrong?
Who?
This guy right here.
Oh, you?
I said it was because it was so wrong. It had to be right.
Well, we did have some audio troubles to start things off. Somebody said, being we were 5 minutes late, does that mean we go till 10 p.m.? And that's definitely not the case. So we won't be doing that. Just a heads up on the show coming up in just a couple of minutes. We're going to be joined by Chief Revenue Officer Uriel Martinez from the LA Galaxy. Talk a little bit about July 4th and the Rose Bowl and all that fun stuff. But Eric, before we get too far into anything, we do have to at least touch on RSL again. A successful road trip, 3 wins in a row, things that you never thought could ever happen. For Greg Vanny and the LA Galaxy, 3 wins in a row. Do they make it 4? Do they make it 5? That's what Dejan Joveljic said. But what'd you make of the RSL game?
I was ecstatic. I was thrilled. They walked away with 3 points against the first place team. It closes that RSL gap. So where RSL was looking to kind of extend themselves in the standings, that's now has everyone bunched up at the top, which is exactly where you want to be. It's kind of funny. I know you were mentioning it with Alex on the show earlier. It doesn't change their standings. It's still in 3rd in the West and still in 5th in the Supporters Shield. But being on the same number of points, there's some mental toughness that kind of comes with that, with saying, hey, we're right there. A tie, a draw, something goes the wrong direction, with the other team, and all of a sudden you're sitting in first place. So I think there's something to that about closing the gap that was massive. The Chicho Arango thing, we have to talk about it with the collision with Martin Caceres. I think that changes the game, and you'd have to be silly not to acknowledge that. But it's still, you had, Diego Fagundes put in another great shift. The people I said this in my notes from last week, that he's making people say Riqui Who, and then he did it again this week. Another Riqui Who type performance. And then Peck stepping up. That's just kind of been, one of my big takeaways is Peck figuring it out. It's kind of funny I wanted to mention this. I have my champion of the match that I do over on Instagram, if you're following, at Hammer EV9. And so every match I post who my match winner is. And I kind of have my own system of doing it. I have, a champion of the match who I give our WWE style belt to. And then I have 3 players who I give a in the mix kind of a shout out that they deserve to be in the conversation. That's how I kind of rank the players. And the purpose behind that is I don't want to overthink it. I don't want to get too cute. I know sometimes with fans, we vote with our hearts too much and we say, we really want to shout out this performance, but at the end of the day, it wasn't, they didn't have the assists or the pass percentage or the goals or whatever it is. So you might say, well, he did everything but score the goal. And then on the other side of it, you said, well, all he did was score a goal and he was quiet for the rest of the game. And well, you need goals to win games. And so I'm going to reward. That's what I want to reward, is kind of those wherever the impact is. And so shout out to Kirk Pilato on Instagram. He's the one who kind of wanted to get a check on the status through 20 games where everything was landing. And he kind of nailed it. He said at the preseason, we all probably would have guessed Riqui Puig was going to be the MVP for the season. Then as the season started, it felt like Paintsill was going to be our MVP of the season. And then now Peck is kind of making a late run. And so that kind of matches right with how the champion of the, if I were calling it a champion of the season on where those standings are going, that kind of falls right in line. Riqui Puig, through 20 matches, for me, has 7 champion of the match performances. Peck has 4. Paintsill also has 4. And so it's kind of funny. Paintsill was those first 4 to 5 games.
Yep.
Paintsill looked fantastic. And then these last 4 to 5 games, Peck has been fantastic. And then that middle 10 is where Riqui really carried the bulk of it. So it's kind of right in line with what we've seen. So I think if we don't overthink it, and it's why I've been pumping the brakes on the Riqui Who conversation with how well Fagundes is playing.
Right.
Fagundes has been playing is because Ricky's been the best player throughout the season over the largest stretch. I think if you look through those middle stretches, he's done the best. But Peck is right there. Paintsill's right there. Joveljic is right behind him with 2. And then when you factor in the mixes, I kind of have a little point system that I have it going. That's how you want it spread out. You want your 3 DPs at the top of the list, your striker right below that. And then after that, it starts to jumble. Fagundes making a little bit of a late run. Delgado getting a lot of the in the mix, not necessarily the championship performances, but a lot of honorable mentions. So I think the way it's shaking out, it's kind of right where you want it to be from a fan perspective. You want your DPs performing and playing well, and then you want your goal scorer, contributing. And so I think this Real Salt Lake game kind of is moving in that direction. So now we're starting to see the defense step up. This was now another clean sheet, another shutout for the defense. And so now it's kind of that next phase. We have the DPs performing, we have the goals going in. Now, if you can fix the defense, this is where we start to peak at the right time and make the magic happen. So again, it's really exciting where this team's gone.
Maya Yoshida was ribbing the reporters. He goes, "Oh, you guys finally wanted to talk to me after a win now, right?" It's like, "Hey, you're getting shutouts, Maya. Shutouts, you get talked to. That's how it works, especially for defenders. It's either as a defender you get talked to about shutouts or you get talked to about losses. Because unless you score a goal as a defender, those are the only times we usually want those for our whole things. No. I think Alex and I were talking on Monday. I'm less concerned. There seems to be a lot of people who are concerned about Riqui Puig coming back. I'm just not concerned. I'm like, no, I think he's seen it. I think he understands. And now he's going to bring the extra gear that the Galaxy have sort of been missing whenever they need to reach for that gear. I think only positive things can come from Riqui Puig's return. I know people are worried about him fitting inside the system. You're seeing system ball being played very, very well right now. And so you sort of want to continue that and continue watching that and see how that builds. And I think there's some people who worry that Riqui comes back and he destroys that system because he is not in the best way to say it, but he is a system destroying like midfielder, but he's also a system destroying midfielder for like anybody who's trying to contain him on the other side too. That the way that he plays, the way that he goes about things is important to take a look at. So, it's an interesting, the RSL game, I think that if Chicho's still in that game, and I think I said it on Monday, if Chicho's still in that game, that's a 1-1, 2-1 game for RSL probably, because RSL had some chances in there. I think they were 1.2 on the XG, so they could have easily had a goal in that, and the Galaxy went and smashed one. It's not a smash and grab because I thought they were they played well
in the game. They weren't getting dominated by RSL, which is fair, which is the Chicho effect, to be fair.
It is. It is 100%. So, we'll see how that goes. Now you go up to San Jose. We'll talk a lot about this, but you have San Jose. Coach just fired. Like, you don't really know what to expect. Even Greg Vandy today talking was like, I don't know. He's like, I mean, how much can they change in a week, right? It's one of those.
Yeah.
As you look at it. So the Galaxy will then go to San Jose, and then after they go to San Jose, they will be off to the Rose Bowl, back home at the Rose Bowl. A lot of fun stuff. We're going to skip ahead now to that Rose Bowl game because we're being joined on the phone by the man I said we would be joined on. He is the final piece of the LA Galaxy's business side leadership triumvirate that we've had here on the show. We've had, we've had Tom Braun, we've had Will Misselbrook, and now it is time for Uriel Martinez. And if I hit all the right buttons, I think I got it. Uriel, are you there?
I'm here, Josh.
Awesome.
Pleasure to be on, Eric. Nice to meet you. Excited to chat with you guys tonight.
No, we're super glad to have you on tonight, and I know we want to talk about Rose Bowl and everything else, but Eric and I, a lot of times we sit here and from outside of the behind the scenes, we're always like, so what do these guys actually do in some of this stuff? So you're going to get the Office Space question to sort of start. What would you say you do here is a great question, but I'd really like to sort of find out what your job is with the LA Galaxy and sort of how that affects, fans on a regular basis.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Josh. And I don't know if I should be offended that I'm the last of the three, arguably probably the best looking of the three.
Absolutely. Well, you don't have the supervillain look that Misselbrook has. So, like the really good looking supervillain look. You seem like a nice guy. I've talked to your nice guy.
Yeah, I don't have that. Yeah, I don't have the supervillain look that Will has, and certainly not the height that Tom has. Although, I'm between 6'1" and 6'5", so we'll see. We'll take that.
That's not nothing.
But I certainly get asked that a lot, and particularly from a sports side, you really just hear about what happens on the field and kind of the team side, and that's fair. So for me and my.
Yep. Go ahead. Sorry, Eric just went away. We'll get him back.
Okay. I didn't say anything that bad that quick.
No, of course not.
And so again, I get asked that a lot. My team is essentially responsible for all revenue for the LA Galaxy and Dignity Health Sports Park, and the verticals that are included in that are anywhere from ticketing, premium, marketing, retail sales, concessions, youth programming, and to some extent sponsorship. For me and for us, we're very fortunate to have a really strong leadership team within those verticals, which certainly makes my life a lot easier. But just a quick high-level view, that's kind of the bucket that kind of falls under my purview.
Yeah, and you've been with the LA Galaxy since 2017, and so unfortunately for you, a wonderful year to have joined. I'm sure you I'm sure it wasn't your fault, so we won't blame you. But start 2017. How have you seen sort of your role, develop with the LA Galaxy, and I imagine joining in 2017, it's got to be a very nice breath of fresh air to sort of be in 2024 where we are right now, and with the Galaxy playing.
Absolutely. Well, just in terms of context, so I spent 12 years working in the NBA for the LA Clippers prior to making the transition to the LA Galaxy. So when it comes to kind of riding the ebbs and flows of winning and losing, it's certainly something that I became accustomed to, spending so much time within that organization. And I think it certainly has evolved. I mean, you mentioned it, 2017 certainly was a rough year for us. But I think from a optimistic standpoint, the only way to go from that point was up, right? And, I think as we've kind of evolved over the last, seven-ish years, the role itself has evolved quite a bit from just coming in. My primary responsibility was ticketing when I first came in there, and then it certainly has evolved since then, taking on marketing, retail concessions, and programming, and again, sponsorship. And, I think a lot of that has to do with just the trust that our CEO and president, Dan Beckerman, and Tom Braun, our president and COO, who you mentioned earlier, just kind of the trust and their vision and really buying into that process has been a large part of why I feel not only we've been successful on the pitch, but also on the business side to date.
Yep. I can certainly understand that. Well, the July 4th game is a big game. Always has been in the history of the LA Galaxy, but the fact now that it's moved over to the Rose Bowl now for the second straight year, one is Why have that idea to start with? Play at the Rose Bowl, play at LAFC, have LAFC there. You have the El Trafico at the Rose Bowl. It's supposed to be the first game of the year last year.
Yeah.
It gets rained out, washed out. You guys have to move it to July 4th. But why, after going to the Rose Bowl, being so successful, why was it important to go back again?
Yeah, I mean, we have although again, 7 years is a long time. So really kind of understanding the context of the Galaxy, we have a reputation of taking risk and being bold. So having the opportunity to host LAFC, arguably the biggest rivalry of MLS and arguably in all of sports at one of the most iconic venues in the world, was a no-brainer. And I think the challenge of filling up a stadium to that extent, and really breaking the MLS attendance record, which we ultimately did on kind of that special July 4th evening, was an opportunity we couldn't pass up. And, our fans showed up, and it was a collective effort amongst all parties involved. And again, it ended up setting the record, and, in large part, which is why we were ecstatic to run it back this year. So, I think that was a huge statement for us on being able to sell out a game of that magnitude, particularly just with everything going on, to be able to do that and accomplish that. I mean, that's something that we were very proud of. And the other thing that I would say, Josh, with that too, is our supporters showed up. I mean, when you think about the demand that we put on them in terms of filling up their part and doing their part from that standpoint, they showed up. So between Lars, Outlaws, ACB, and Galaxians, we couldn't be happier with the turnout for the Rose Bowl last year, and kind of how they continue to support us this year.
Yeah, Uriel, you kind of mentioned, about filling the stadium there here on July 4th. And I know the internet is not always to be believed, but there are some posts kind of going around about discounted tickets and trying to fill it kind of for the game, which obviously you want. But do you feel like that may leave a little bit of a sour taste with those who are maybe early adopters or paid full price? Or how do you navigate those tough waters between, getting those early adopters and filling the stadium with also the challenges of filling such a large stadium?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, and I think it's a great point. I think for us, we try to provide a ton of value for all fans, and we're extremely excited about the obviously the game itself. As I mentioned, it's going to be an amazing game no matter what. But the things that are going to go around it, whether it's Soccer Fest, the post game fireworks, and I'm not sure if you heard, but Tom was talking about this earlier this morning, that we've secured an Grammy Award winner Afrojack as our pregame and halftime performance. So that's a kind of a huge win for us. So again, I think we're always trying to provide that best value, Eric. And obviously when you have 80,000 plus seats in a stadium, I'd love to say that we can control every ticket that goes in and out of that. But for us, it's really focusing on the game and making sure that our fans walk away with the best experience possible.
Yeah, Uriel, you have the supporter section sold out. I know at one point there was a large disparity between LA Galaxy tickets being sold and LAFC tickets being sold. How do you see everything shaping up for the July 4th game here?
So I'm happy to report, I mean, from the Galaxy standpoint, we are near selling out. We have very, very limited availability in any of the Galaxy sections. We still have availability in LAFC sections. So for us, again, we think it's going to be another magical moment for MLS, for the Galaxy and the Rose Bowl, and for the rivalry. And, if you haven't made plans yet on July 4th, we encourage you to come to the Rose Bowl because, again, if you missed out on last year, I encourage you to log on to Apple and see a little bit of the highlights. It's worthwhile. It was an amazing goal by Riqui Puig in the end to give us that victory. And we anticipate just as much atmosphere this go around because you got to remember, hopefully the hope is that it's going to be 1 versus 2 heading into the biggest game of the year.
Yeah, it certainly is. It may be one of the most significant El Traficos ever to be played with both teams sort of positioned. Last one for me, and then I'll let Eric sort of finish things up. But you talked about, sort of the fan experience, and I know that's something that is close to your heart in terms of, what you like to add and the value added on that stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about Soccer Fest and what your goal is behind all of that?
Absolutely. Well, Soccer Fest is going to take place at the Rose Bowl, as I mentioned, from 2:30 to 6:30 in Lot H. We're going to have anything from live music, DJ, food, drinks, face painting, photo booth, pop-up team store selling merch, Star Squad. So there's going to be a lot of different activations there. So we obviously encourage you to get to the Rose Bowl early to avoid, worrying about missing kick. But if you do get there early, there's going to be a ton of stuff for you and your family to do. So we not only are really pumped about what's going to happen on the field, we put a lot of investment into what happens in and around the game, and we encourage all fans to show up early and take advantage of the opportunity to have some fun before kick.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to give, yourself and Tom and Will and the triumvirate there credit, the hyping up of the game day experience and having gone, to the stadium and seeing Soccer Fest and the things that go on definitely, deserve, credit for the changes that have happened this season. But I know there may be some Rose Bowl merch coming down the line, and maybe I'm shooting for the moon here. But is there anything outside of Soccer Fest, or if you want to talk about the Rose Bowl merch, anything that you know about that may be coming down the line that maybe you can give our listeners a sneak peek of something that you might be excited about rolling out beyond some of the things you've talked about?
Yeah, look, I certainly am really excited about some of the stuff that Will Misselbrook and his team have poised to release on this match. Matter of fact, we were just looking at it the other day, and it's really, really cool. It's really nice. We're really excited about giving the fans something to kind of lean into the history of the Rose Bowl. I don't necessarily know that I have much to add as it relates to teasing it a little bit. All I can tell you, because I don't want to ruin it, all I can tell you it's an amazing merch that really leans into the history of the Rose Bowl that I think our fans are really, really going to enjoy.
Awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun. The LA Galaxy playing at the Rose Bowl on July 4th. Get your tickets, lagalaxy.com. You can find all that fun stuff right there. Uriel, I appreciate you stopping by. I hope you enjoyed your brief little appearance here on the show, and we'll have you on again real soon. Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, Josh. Thanks,
right.
Eric.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks for your time.
Goes. Uriel Martinez, the Chief Revenue Officer. I like the idea of the leadership triumvirate, right? Like it's not just the executive leadership team. These are the three spears, the 3 pointy spears. I've gotten to talk to him a bunch whenever I've been up in the press box. He stops by. Tom Braun stops by all the time. Again, what a change in just how everything is going within the LA Galaxy. We get stopped and talked to and hello, how's it going and all that fun stuff. Really smart guy, has a lot of stuff. So again, for the July 4th game, seems like it's a lot of fun. I know there's going to be a lot of people there. And again, I don't make this stuff up. I know some people think I do. Certainly if you're on the LAFC side, you think I make stuff up.
Fake news.
Yeah, but all those numbers I'm giving you are correct numbers. The Galaxy section as a whole, which is, I think we broke it up last time. It's like 40% and 40%. And then there's 10% and like 10% that are neutral in between, right? That gives you your 100%. So 40% of the stadium is being close to sold out. That's where you're at right now. I know apparently there's a boycott going on, perhaps from the other side, which, hey, sounds great. Whatever.
It's a little late in the game also to, and maybe it's because we're not entrenched on that side. Maybe this is something that they've been discussing. It feels like
a reach, but
taking my ball and going home, like you can't fire me, I quit type of situation. That's what it seems like. But I also understand and I'm glad Uriel was upfront with answering that question is you have to fill the stadium. The Rose Bowl is not a stadium that, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 is going to make a difference. You really need to have that place rocking. You need to fill it up. And so, obviously you're going to do what you have to do. And it's exciting that they're still having, Soccer Fest and making that work, still, doing the DJ performance. I know it gets mixed reviews from some, but I really love the hype up that they're doing with getting a Grammy award-winning, DJ doing the thing. So I just think how they're going to blow it out. And he teased some of the merch going on. I think for those who are going, it's really going to be a fun experience. I definitely, have my own kind of plans. 4th of July. I know you mentioned that you do your family stuff. So the Galaxy on 4th of July was never my thing, but I know that that's a thing for a lot of families, and blowing it out and making an event and making it a fun thing. I think it definitely becomes one of those marquee matches where you could put on your calendar, well, the 4th of July, we're going to do this. I know you have your feelings about the Rose Bowl, but you could also twist this and make this a really fun experience.
Absolutely.
About having, I had that last year watching it on TV, the FOMO, seeing, the Galaxy fans outnumbering the other fan base, walking away with the win. It had a different feel to it. There was something, I talked about it. We recapped. There wasn't a lot of positives to last season, but that was one of them.
Yeah.
That was one of those, you walked away with your chest held out and proud to be a Galaxy fan after that experience. And so I could only hope that it's something similar like that, when it happens next week.
I don't want to get too far ahead of it because clearly there's a San Jose game. But with the fact that both of these teams are near the top in the Western Conference, does that make it a bigger game? Does it make it a less important game? I mean, I think there's an argument that, okay, it's a whatever game. Both of these teams are near the top of the Western Conference. It's nice to have. For the Galaxy, it's a bigger game. It's a home game, quote-unquote home game. You need to win your home games. We've talked about that. But I don't know how to look at it yet. And maybe it's because we're not there yet, right? We're not. It's not July 4th yet. We are not at July 4th yet. The Galaxy have to play San Jose. I refuse to look past the San Jose game because it just screams trap game from the very beginning, right? So, I mean, does the fact that they're right next to each other make it bigger, smaller, the same? Does it matter? I think if they're like Uriel mentioned, if they're 1 and 2 in the standings, I think it's bigger. I think it's when they're every time they've played, there's been a disparity of where they are in the standings, and it just seems like it's always been very unbalanced. So if to have them so close and both humming at the same time, I don't think we've seen that. We've seen, the Galaxy come in on a weakened position and walk away winners. We've seen LAFC maybe not at their best and and still manage to walk away with some points from the Galaxy. So I think seeing them both kind of, peaking, for lack of, to use my own joke here, peaking at this time of the season, right, it makes it a bigger experience. While I can see it's July, it's not close to the playoffs. There's still a lot of season. There's a lot of, shifts that can happen, but it's also with how bunched up the Western Conference is, these points against a Western Conference opponent, if it gets really tight, the difference of 3 points at the end of the season could be the difference between, 3rd and 4th place or 2nd and 3rd. And if that gives you a home match in a Western Conference final, and that's the difference, then you can look at it that way also, because it looks like, LAFC on the other side of it, they're not going to be falling out of a playoff spot. Right. You're going to probably have to go through them eventually. So these can be very crucial points. These 3 points are worth just as much as, decision day 3 points. So when you look at it that way, I think you can look at it as a big game. I would view this as one of the biggest El Traficos that we've walked into relevancy-wise. It's going to be an interesting one to watch. Another important anniversary has just come and passed, Eric. This is, of course, the almighty famous Mike McGee goalkeeping game. 13 years ago? Yeah, 13 years ago on June 25th. 13 years. I was there. I was in the stands with one of my friends, Chad. Chad and I were in the stands. We were like, oh, man, this is a crazy game. Standing with the traveling supporters that were there. So we were over on we were at the souped up high school that San Jose used to play at, over on that. And we remember whenever Donovan Ricketts got hurt. And I remember whenever Josh Saunders got a red card, which, by the way, still don't think it's a red card. You can't just give people gifts like that. So the Galaxy go down to no goalkeepers, and Mike McGee, as he's told the story, went over to Bruce Arena, was like, hey, I'll put the shirt on. And Bruce was like, okay. Like, there was no thought about this. There's no plan. Yeah. No, there was no plan. Mike McGee's like, I'll just put the shirt on. He's like, okay. And then he got in there and he's like, what did I do? What am I doing? Why am I playing goalkeeper? But as the kids say, it adds to the lore. It really is something special when we look back on that. The funny thing about this, I think I've mentioned it on before, this is actually my wedding anniversary. My wedding was on this day, and I remember, getting updates. Hey, Galaxy tied, and there were red cards, or they were, right. And then this was also the day of USA versus Mexico, where Giovanni Dos Santos had that goal. So I remember getting updates. Hey, the U.S. is winning, and then later on, no one else checked in with me. I was like, what happened? It's like, oh, they got killed by Mexico. Yep. I remember not watching these games, but then finding out at them via reports and going in afterwards. So it's always funny when this date pops up every year. It's interesting that you have a love interest tied to this as well. My on again, off again girlfriend was living in San Jose, and so I went up for the game, but I went to go say hi, and now she's my wife, so it works. Okay, it worked out. You're like, who's that? Assuming that's where this story was going.
fair.
You never know. So some of my favorite things that happened in this game that don't get talked about enough, and I always like to point it out. One is that Mr. Greg Berhalter was playing in this game for the LA Galaxy. He was at center back.
The much beloved Greg Berhalter.
The much beloved, especially after a night. Hey,
what
man,
a day for him, huh?
Red cards, man. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hey, you stop. People need to stop being stupid. Yeah, if you didn't watch Timothy Weah get a red card in the 18th minute, I believe, of the match, in the USA-Panama game, then woo, fun. But one of the things that wasn't talked about enough in this game is that, so Steven Lenhart baited Josh Saunders into getting the red card, and then he proceeded to go, and I feel like the referee was even upset. Like, he didn't want to give the red card, and he was like, this is stupid. And so he gave the red card. So Lenhart then spent the rest of the night complaining that he was getting his ankles chopped, and it was Greg Berhalter. He knew the referee. He knew the referee wasn't going to call it after that. And so Berhalter, every chance he would get, would just kick Lenhart, and Lenhart would be down on the ground. If you remember, after this game, Lenhart got talked to after this game, and he said, I don't want to talk about it. And then he basically started crying off in the room. That was the result of Mike McGee's frustration there. So big shout out to Mike McGee and 13 years for the famous goalkeeper game. One of my favorites. Oh,
and a hate shout out to Steven Lenhart. I was on a watch along this week talking about how you hate certain players, and he was absolutely one of those guys who I just absolutely despised and hated that game. And this was part of why, going back and watching, he just always antagonized the Galaxy. He was an annoying guy. One of those guys, when you hear Alan Gordon talk about him and people who played with him, 100% someone who you would want on your side if he's on your team, because he drove you crazy when you played against him. So again, just want to give a shout out to Steven Lenhart, because I hated him, and I still hate him to this day because of that. So you know what? I hate you.
Yeah, it is. I think it's well earned, right? There's a heel.
Fair.
There's
a respect hate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a wrestling hate. I don't like the bad guy because he's doing his job. If I don't like him, then that's exactly what you want, right?
Yeah. That's exactly how it is. Philip gives a $2 super chat and says, Riqui Puig equals Mike McGee in goal this Saturday. I mean, does that mean you want Riqui Puig to play goalkeeper?
He's not who I would throw back there. Yeah.
I mean, they're honestly probably about the same height. Mike McGee isn't that big. And then whenever you look back at the replays, watch how short he looks in goal. Mike McGee was not. He's not a skyscraper. All right, so that type of thing. Adam, $5 super chat. Can you guys go into details of Neal's contract extension if you have any info? Here's what we can tell you, and it's nothing, so don't get excited about it. Tom Bogert was on his show and was talking about what was going on with the LA Galaxy. He gave a Marco Reus update, and then he talked about Jalen Neal working on a contract extension. So with Neal, I think he has 18 months left on his contract about this point. So you are in the prime, you have to negotiate a contract, and the LA Galaxy are absolutely going to try to keep Jalen Neal, and I think they will. I think there's going to be opportunities to sell him in the next 3-4 years, and I think that the Galaxy want to capitalize on that. So just sort of watch that as that comes through. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You can't have a super old center back tandem without having Jalen Neal in there, and then understanding that Jalen Neal is, the future of that, and possibly Garces is the future of that,
Yeah. To me, it feels a lot like the Riqui Puig contract extension. And this is not an insult. It sounds bad the way I say it, but Jalen Neal is not long for the LA Galaxy. I think if he keeps playing as well as he keeps playing, he's probably already getting recognized and has highlighter next to his name by leagues, either across Europe or around the world. And so it would not surprise me if Jalen Neal has offers coming for him as early as this summer, but potentially next summer or after that. And so I think when you want to lock him into a contract, so you can get, the revenue from that and everything that goes for it. And I mean that as the utmost compliment to Jalen Neal, because I think he's going to play himself into a position, into a league somewhere else outside of the MLS.
Well, and who doesn't want Galaxy Mom also coming along too, right? You're getting 2 for 1 at this.
Yeah.
This is a good deal on that.
And I don't know how to feel about that too, because I'm sure she wants to see him succeed and go elsewhere and grow to his maximum potential. But there's something about that specialty of, this is home, this is the Galaxy. And so, that's got to be tough as a parent to go through that. But what good problems to have, right?
Yeah, it is. It's Chris says, any update on Mark Delgado's contract? I'm going to tell you exactly what I was told, and also that you shouldn't be worried about Mark Delgado's contract, because the Galaxy aren't worried about Mark Delgado's contract because they have him on an option year for the next year, and they don't have an option decline until like mid-December. He's going to be with the Galaxy. I don't think he's going anywhere. The amount of ground that he covers and what he does in a Greg Vanney system sort of ensures that he's probably not going anywhere, and they're going to exercise that option. That's what it feels like for me talking. So I know there's lots of like talk about it. I see it in Discord too. People are like, oh, maybe Mark Delgado's got to go if Marco Reus comes in. I was told that was not the case, so I do not expect that to happen. Mark Delgado isn't going anywhere. It is interesting, and I think this question was asked in the Discord, and I do like the idea of thinking about it. By the way, what is it? Best tennis player, a $10 super chat says, let's go Galaxy. We have such a great team this year, which also falls into, thank you for the super chat, but also falls into what I wanted to talk about, which is the Galaxy certainly seemed, and again, I always preface this with, I do not like to think about next year. I do not like to be like, oh, well, they're set up for next year. Things happen, things go down. But when you looked at the roster and how everything was sort of starting to set up, it looked obvious they were setting up for next year, right?
Yeah, with those mid-season moves, it's correct. Right.
Okay. So, but now they're in the hunt. And they have been, and you can't argue that they're not one of the top, 5, 6 best teams in Major League Soccer right now. As it stands right now, probably top 5 or 6. I think that's pretty, maybe they're 4, maybe they're 5, maybe they're 6. I wouldn't say they're in the top 3 or 4, but that's fine, okay? I can't see them. I don't know how they're going to face against Cincinnati. I don't know how they're going to face. We've seen them play against Miami, but that was a different Miami too, so it was very early in the season. So you look at all these things, it's like, how do they really match up? Do you think the Galaxy got better than they thought they were going to get this year? Do you think now they're making plans to not only sort of, bulk up this roster in the ways that they can, but to really make a run at a cup? It feels like things have shifted a little bit.
Yeah, I think when you see the performance, and shout out to best tennis player, maybe that's a debate we can have later on who's the best tennis player, right? Because apparently they're here in the chat. Okay. But when you look at how they played, I'm with you about not worrying about next year. And when you look at how they've played to start the season, I think this is where you look at your summer window and it's like, okay, well, I've seen how we've started. Let's go try to win a cup this year, because everything is so volatile. You don't know what injuries are going to happen. You don't know what offers are going to come for some players who you thought you had locked under contract. But if someone comes with a Godfather offer for Riqui or for Jalen, then that changes how your team is constructed. And then, things kind of go haywire after that. So you kind of have to live in the moment and go for your runs within the season. When we got Riqui Puig 2 seasons ago, I was like, oh, this for next year, it's going to be the year after, it's going to be fantastic. We're setting up. All the pieces are going to be in place. You get Chicharito, humming again for one final season, and we're going to do great. And then we saw last season what happened with the 2023 LA Galaxy. It was a disaster in a lot of ways in terms of the end performance. So here I was looking towards next season, seeming that everything was lining up to be successful, and then it all fell apart. And so I think, while the Galaxy have built their core and there's a lot to be excited about, who knows what can happen about next season. So you really do have to push all your chips in once you see this first part of the season and how it's going. And that's why I like the Marco Reus move, because I've talked myself more into it than maybe I was less thrilled about it earlier. But I think he gives you someone who's going to bring that experience and that dynamic now. He's not someone who you need to develop for the next few years.
He's not a future. He's not a future. You get a year and a half out of him probably as your max. Yeah. That type of thing.
And the other thing that it changed, we were talking about Delgado. I've also kind of shifted my, not that I changed my feelings about Delgado, but it's how Brugman's injuries have kind of impacted this team. I think he's more of the person who you have to worry about and replacing. So if I had to, you put a gun to my head and I had to pick one, Delgado or Brugman, if you asked me based on talent and what they can bring, I probably would have told you Brugman, at the beginning of the season. But right now I would say swap out Brugman and keep Delgado in there. And then, Reus is who you slot in that Brugman spot. While he does play kind of the protector, Delgado has shown that he's so versatile that he can kind of shift into more of that protector role. And then you have another attacking option. So I really think Delgado is built more for the future than maybe Brugman was, where that's something I wouldn't have said at the start of the season.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. Adam asks, $2 super chat. McCarthy was signed for 2 years. Is that correct? That's correct. Through the end of 2025 is his contract. So that's where he sits. The Marco Reus update, by the way, from Tom Bogert is this. One, I always say go listen to Tom because I think he's great, and his mustache is awesome. So Tom said this, and this is also what I've heard, so it matches up with where I think everything's at. There are ongoing talks with Marco Reus. That deal is not done. It doesn't seem like it's imminent, like it's going to happen right away. But that they're working through all of that, and we'll see where it ends up. I think the same sort of cautionary tale that we had at the beginning of this, which is there's some chances this will get done. There's some chances this won't get done. I think that still stands. I will say that all the quietness and the calmness that's sort of been around this is probably more of a good sign than a bad sign, right? When things go bad or things go wrong, you usually hear about it. It comes out, things end.
Yeah, usually when, and you get this a lot, probably more than anyone, is, fans and rumors pop up, and then you go to the club and they're very quick to shut things down. And just the fact that this hasn't been shut down at this point is a positive sign. I think you read between the lines in that regard, because very often, you hear from people connected to these clubs and to the league. No, that's not true. Where are you getting that from? Who's your source on that? Yeah. They're very quick with that. Where if it's not, well, I don't know. Maybe. Yep. Hey, we don't know what's going on. It's like you can figure out what's happening based on those different types of responses.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to say.
Which I have kind of a funny one later once we get towards the end of our show on that. Yeah.
Okay, good. So anyway, so that's where it stands. So I still think the Marco Reus thing seems like it's still, on the front burner for what the Galaxy are trying to do. Jalen Neal getting that contract extension, working that out. I think that'll be good. Mark Delgado, I imagine they're going to exercise the option. If they don't exercise the option, they may rework a contract in order for him to stay. I don't think Mark Delgado wants to go anywhere. Let's put it that way. So I think there is
also fair.
I think there is some negotiating power in that with him, but I mean, he's also, this is his big payday. This is it. This everything after this is probably lower than what he's going to get. So if you have to move in order to capture that money, and maybe he goes down to Mexico because he has the Mexican passport that he can go down there and work on, then maybe that makes the most sense for him. I just don't think the Galaxy in the worst case scenario can exercise an option. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is that he wants to stay and they work out a new contract. They keep him, for another 2-3 years, and is a value to what the LA Galaxy are trying to do. We'll see if that is
That's
indeed.
the big thing.
Yeah. And you have to go and you'd really have to sit down with Will Kuntz and see what he thinks is the value for Delgado, what he thinks the long-term plan. He's the guy who's going to be making those decisions. So it's one of those to continue watching. Michael, $2 super chat. Does the play style change now that Puig is back? No. It shouldn't. All right. It's going to be different, but the actual style should not change. I do like the calmness that is within the play style right now. There is, you remember how, and I don't know if people remember this or not, but in 2011, the Galaxy would go up 1-0 and you'd be like, oh, they won the game. It's over. Like you were like, oh, okay, it's over. They're going to shut it down now because they know how to win these games and know how to do that. Mm-hmm. Some of that is starting to creep in. If you watch the rest of that RSL game, there was very little that sort of pointed to RSL suddenly coming alive and being able to take that game back. Maybe that was because of Chicho. Maybe that was because of how the Galaxy were playing. But they seemed composed. They seemed to know what they were going to do, and RSL still had to worry about them on the counter. And when that is the case, you get people who are scared of things. And if you're solid defensively, if you can stay compact, if you can keep people from breaking through your lines, and then also be a threat to score still, that's a huge deal. That's how you win these games. That's how you shut down. This is how the Galaxy are going to win more 1-0 games. Is it that exact way? And I think that Riqui Puig can play in that way. Do I think that Riqui Puig can cause some problems for the style of play? Absolutely, because we've seen it, right? But I think he watched. I think he saw. I think he's believed sort of where it is. And now all you're asking him to do, Eric, is you're asking him to have that individual moment of brilliance every once in a while that breaks everything open and plays within the style. And if they do that, I think the Galaxy are great. But the other great thing is that you now can sit there and say, Eric, that you could play Riqui Puig for 65, 70 minutes and then pull him off.
Yeah, and feel comfortable with that.
That's a crazy thing to talk about. But it's going to save wear and tear on Riqui Puig. 2, it's going to calm the way that the Galaxy play. And 3, I think if you play these ways where you let him be this sort of this spark plug that starts the offense, that creates, scores goals, and then the Galaxy get up 2-0, 2-1 in the 65th, 70th minute, you pull Riqui Puig off and you go into the nice calm set that you've sort of been seeing, and I think the Galaxy can outlast that thing. So I'm interested to see how it is. I think this team likes each other. As Raul was saying, down in the bottom he was at open training session on Tuesday. Team is looking like they're all having fun. They're having fun. They do like each other, but winning does that.
I was going to say it's a lot more easy to have fun when you're having a good time. The thing with Riqui, and to answer Michael's question about the play style changing, I think the thing you get so wrapped up in these wins, this win streak that the Galaxy are on right now, it feels like we've forgotten that Peck and Paintstill are still going to be able to make those runs, and there's probably no one else on the team that you want to give that pass, putting them into space, than Riqui Puig. He's done it before. He's done it earlier in the season. He's able to thread the needle. Often, sometimes there is the dispossession, but when he's on the field, the Galaxy are able to possess. And when you have your wingers making those runs and getting in behind defenses, having Riqui dish that out, that's gonna add something to this Galaxy team more than whatever you lose, by sitting back and kind of playing the counter style. As much as I like that, I think that's, to me, when you weigh the options, that's much more of a benefit. And I don't know if this is something, I don't know if Alex Ruiz mentioned it or someone else mentioned it, but the break that they had where Vanny was able to kind of have some discussions with them, and I don't know if you mentioned this also, where they were kind of able to shore up some of their defensive tactics and really to spend time on focus on what the style of play is. That's something that helped them. And you see it with the last two matches against New York and against RSL, having those shutouts. You saw them frustrate a New York City team who you can say that, they didn't finish their chances or they didn't create good opportunities. But you could also give tons of credit to the Galaxy defense for blocking a lot of shots, giving them angles that just weren't going to make them successful as well. And I think there's something to that break that really benefited them because they were able to figure out whatever defensive issues they were having. It feels like they've started to zero in. And that's also why I mentioned that this is kind of the final phase. You've had your DPs performing.
Right.
Now you're going to have your defense start to put it together and have a full squad at full health with a strong defense. This is really we can start to make a lot of good things happen.
Galaxy in the last 11 games have only given up 10 goals, which is less than 1 goal per game, which is actually a fairly solid defensive performance, especially from where they came from. And we've sort of talked about that as well. Victor says, what about the rumor for Japanese midfielder Waikizaka Yasudo? Now, I saw this rumor. I have not had a chance to chase it down. This is what is leading to speculation of possibly a Brugman departure or possibly a Mark Delgado departure, right? That type of thing. Mm-hmm. I would say pump the brakes on all that and let's see if it's real. But we'll check in on that. But I did see the rumor; it is out there. I tend to believe it's not true, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Galaxy continue to mine Japan, especially sort of having. You have to imagine that Miki Yamane and Maya Yoshida are talking to all their friends back in Japan, being like, "You need to come to Los Angeles, man. We are loving it out here. This team is good. Like the best recruiting is going on right now with Maya Yoshida, who's one of the top, players and officials within Japanese soccer, right? So huge deal.
And with how Miki Yamane has played, and again, we don't know who exactly is taking credit for the scouting that's going on in the J League, but if whoever scouted Miki Yamane, you say, do that again, because you got someone who was a solid player. So whoever had the eye to catch that, say, hey, let's go to this league. Let's try a different position, because whoever saw something there, it transferred well. And so I think you have to think that they're going to go back to that well if it was successful. Notice they're not going to League 2 in France to get more players. That's not going to be where the scouting department is going to be spending their time, given our history with that. So again, you go where you've found success, and then when the next player who comes through from Japan who's not successful, then you move on to the next market. But right now it's working, so it doesn't surprise me if they're going back to it.
We go back to the standings, Eastern Conference with Miami in the top. The LA Galaxy tied with Real Salt Lake and LAFC, currently 1, 2, and 3. LAFC, RSL, and LA Galaxy with all the tiebreakers broken in there as well. All sitting at 37 points. LAFC with 1 game in hand. Galaxy will next be facing off against San Jose, who has 11 points. That's right, 11 points. Through the entire season, and a minus 22 goal differential doesn't help whenever they get blitzed 6-2 in their last game. That was at LAFC. Let's see. You want to talk a little bit about this game, Eric? You ready to go?
Yeah, I do. Also worth mentioning, we talked about the Western Conference standings where San Jose sits 14th. They're also 29th out of 29 teams in the Supporters Shield. So again, it's not just bad on one side; it's bad on both tables, which again, not great for them, but
right.
We'll see how the Galaxy handle that.
Yeah, no, it's going to be again trap game.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I keep saying.
With all this talk about July 4th, it feels like we're looking past it, and just you have to hope that that the play on the field it's either worth looking past or that it doesn't come back to bite him.
That's right. Michael has a super chat here, $5 super chat. He says, "What a miracle that the Rams PR team collabed with the G's." Do you know what that's about? Did I miss that?
It may have been Gabriel Peck was at SoFi Stadium either for the Brazil match or one of those matches, and I think he took a picture with a Rams jersey.
There you
go.
So
that may have been something there.
There apparently were a whole bunch of Galaxy players.
I think they were all in the suite.
Yeah, they were up there, and so it was quite the showing there for Copa America and everything that's going on there. It's fun to have it in your backyard, which is always cool. So that was going on. I get that. Thank you, Michael, for the super chat. Appreciate that. Let's get to the LA Galaxy facing off against the San Jose Earthquake, 7:30 p.m., 7:40 p.m. Kickoff time at Stanford Stadium, coming up on Apple TV and MLS Season Pass. That's on Saturday, June 29th, so a standard 7:30 p.m. game. Stanford Stadium with all of the trappings that come into that. Amazingly, San Jose 3-14-2. 14 losses. Only 5 times have San Jose gotten a point or better in their games so far this season. The LA Galaxy 10-3-7 as they go into it. It was interesting. Vanny was talking about San Jose, and he was talking about Luchi Gonzalez. Luchi Gonzalez got fired after LAFC. Recently destroyed and dismantled San Jose Earthquakes, and it was 4-0. I think in the 43rd minute or something like that. The game was well over. Ended up 6-2 was the final. Yeah. But Luchi Gonzalez, who was down with Dallas and had some success there, and then went up to San Jose, and now gets relieved of duties there. Greg Vanny was talking about how he was sad because Luchi Gonzalez is a friend of his, that type of thing. But so no coach there, Eric. What were you going to say? Sorry.
I was going to say it's such a weird situation because you hear it all the time and it doesn't make any sense with the same players, but there's the coach bounce back where we got a new coach or whatever, the coach got fired and then the players feel like they have new life or something worth playing for. Either, we're going to play for our coach who just got fired, or we're going to prove that they were wrong for that decision, or thank goodness he's gone and let's now we can show and ball out and do what we've been trying to do without the constraints of someone putting it in a poor position. And I think that just adds another wrinkle to this game that, should be on paper one of those games where you handle your business. But, there's so many different variables, and you look at their roster. I always do the who scares you when you look at their lineup. And we've seen Jeremy Ebobisse, someone who's made the Galaxy pay for mistakes. Espinosa is always someone you have to worry about. So even though they're sitting bottom of the table, 29 out of 29 teams, they still have 1 or 2 players, and that says something either about the league or whatever it is that can make you pay and make you feel bad about it. So again, with the new coach bump, with players that still have some talent on their team, it just makes me a little bit nervous going into this game.
San Jose gets their assistant coach. It is Ian Russell. Assistant coach Ian Russell is now the interim head coach, so he takes over. San Jose, by the way, is winless in their last 6 meetings with the LA Galaxy. They're 5-0-1 in those meetings, so they didn't even they got a draw once out of those last 6 games. Mm-hmm. Again, doesn't bode well for Josh's roulette theory and all this, but that's how it goes. The other part of this is that San Jose is 0-6-1 in their last 7 games. Their last win came on, wait for it, May 11th was the last time they won a game.
At Colorado.
At Colorado,
it was although Colorado, I guess, is doing better this season, but not exactly a marquee win.
No, not at all. Win at Colorado, 3-2 win was that. They had the 6-2 loss to LAFC. They had a 2-1 loss to Portland. They had a 4-2 loss to Cincinnati. They had a 5-1 loss to New York City. The draw versus Austin was the one time they sort of got the points. That was at home for them. A 1-0 loss to Orlando at home for San Jose. A loss at Portland, 4-2. In there, and then that 3-2 win at Colorado. That was the last time they won. So, again, nothing exciting about all of this whenever you look at it from the San Jose side of things. Greg Vanny talking today about how he says, Ian, he was talking about Ian Russell, who's the interim coach. He said, I don't know that Ian has time to change much, of anything. He goes,
also true.
It's still the team. It's still the same team. There's not going to be a different team that shows up all of a sudden. You can't trade all your players away and make any changes. And by the way, he's also an interim head coach. And so what is he going to be able to do, for this time and sort of looking at that. So, you pointed out, if you go and look at this roster, there's still guys who can make you nervous. And obviously Christian Espinosa, 13 goals, 13 assists. Jeremy Ebobisse, 10 goals, 4 assists.
3 goals.
Oh.
If he had 13 goals, San Jose would be in really good shape.
What, Espinosa?
Espinosa has, I see,
he's
3 goals.
Oh,
10 assists.
Did I read it wrong? Really?
Did I get the wrong stats?
I think you got the wrong stats. Because I hit the goal button and he was at the top of it.
All right.
Hold on.
I stand to be fact checked.
Stand by. Hey, chat, how many goals does Espinosa have? Just check. No, you're probably right. You're probably right. I'm probably wrong.
Right, that feels high.
It feels like a lot, but it felt like, it was one of those things. So anyway, we'll let you guys correct that. Chat will fix it. One of the other interesting things that you see here is that you had a young goalkeeper, 24-year-old goalkeeper Jackson has been in there for 180 total minutes, 8 games played, 8 goals against, 2 games played. I don't know if you see him again. It seems like they were trying something new and doing stuff. I don't know if you'll see him again, but that was sort of one of those things that you can sort of pay attention to as well. The referee for the match is Guido Gonzalez Jr. Who the heck are these guys, Eric?
I said the same exact reaction. I said this name sounds like a pro clubs player that you'd make up, someone you'd run into, a Guido Gonzalez Jr. But then you look at the pro stats. He's reffed the most MLS games with 11 appearances. He's at the top of the list in terms of most appearances for MLS this season. But good thing or bad thing, depending on how you look at it, he's never reffed an LA Galaxy match in his career, and he's never reffed a San Jose match either. So this is going to be a brand new face for us to learn to hate. So hopefully it's someone who we forget about and doesn't become an issue, but this will be a new face for both teams and for the fan base.
By the way, 3 goals, 10 assists. You were right. In my mind, I just added them together. Don't worry about it.
I was just thinking.
He's like, man, he's really good.
How is San Jose? And he's beating Dejan Joveljic for Golden Boot, and somehow they're sitting in 29th. Yeah, didn't sit right with me.
I also I would just like to point out that I don't even trust MLSsoccer.com anymore, and so I was like, oh man, I guess, that type of thing. So I was sort of looking around at some different things. No, you're right. I wrote it down wrong. That's why you screen cap things instead of writing them down so you don't screw it up. But no, this is a San Jose team that is very winless, is very lost, has looked pathetic at times. Did I ever tell you that they can't win the wooden spoon? Did I ever tell you this? Do you know the story?
I sat next to the wooden spoon. I think it was my debut COG season. I sat in front of the wooden spoon for all the Thursdays that I was sitting in the studio there. Yep. So, so I am familiar with that story that San Jose can't do it. Another funny fact, and I'm sure I'll let you get back into it. I do have a friend who does cover the San Jose Earthquakes. He does some Portuguese, commentating for them. And I was mentioning this game. He's like, oh yeah, that was this weekend. So even people who cover the team, right? It's a second thought, it's an afterthought, and he's pretty disappointed. This is kind of his first year, helping out in that regard. So he's got to witness San Jose really fall apart. If you look at some of those, you mentioned some of the scores, just against the Galaxy, 4-3, 3-1. That's, 4-goal game, a 3-goal game. So they're susceptible to get a lot of goals scored on them. And so that's probably not fun if you're doing some of the home commentary for that team.
Now, if you remember LA Galaxy last time they played out 4-3, that was a red card in this game. And the Galaxy held on to win this. So that was interesting to look at that. Also a 3-1 win earlier this year. In the 2024 season for the Galaxy away at San Jose, right? So
one of the performances of the season. So because
they got to shut it down early.
Win. Yeah.
Yes, it was 3-0 early in the second half, and it was like game over. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. And so we'll see how that sort of plays out for the rest of this. Do you want to talk about D ratings?
Yeah, D ratings, interesting one here. Again, we've talked about it. We talked about it at RSL, where it seems to favor the home team. And so when it was less than 50% for the home team, we're like, hey, they're giving the Galaxy a little bit of love there. And then we saw how it turned out. Here, away at Stanford, to a home game for the San Jose Earthquakes, the LA Galaxy are road favorites. The LA Galaxy are favored to win 38.5% to San Jose's 35% even, and then a draw for 26.5%. So pretty close in terms of down the middle. But when we factor in that the Galaxy are the traveling team, right, it's kind of incredible that they're favored to win. But you also mentioned, and I think the chat got a kick out of it as well, the very winless, not just winless, but the very winless San Jose Earthquakes. It makes sense why D ratings would give Galaxy the edge here.
65% chance for the LA Galaxy to win or draw in this game.
Yeah.
That's anytime that's over 50, I start to be like, really on the road, really, that's what you want to go with. Ugh.
Yeah. Which is where our factor comes in. We say it's definitely going to be a draw or a loss, given that that's what they're saying. If we I'll talk about the money line. Galaxy plus 145, San Jose plus 160, a draw at plus 285.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like putting money on the draw. Is that a bad thing?
No.
To do that? I feel like you get the most out of that, and just with the weird, everything weird kind of happening around the game. It feels like a draw might be something that we're leaning into, as much as I think they're capable of getting the win. We'll see how it turns out. Over under at 3.5. So again, a goal fest. I mentioned how the San Jose Earthquakes likes to give up a lot of goals, so it doesn't surprise me that 3.5 is the number, not 3. So again, if you want over 3.5, it's plus 100. If you want under 3.5, it's minus 120. So do what you will with that information.
History-wise for the LA Galaxy now at 3 wins in a row. If you go back to recent times, their longest winning streak from basically the 2009 season all the way to 2024 was 5 in a row. So the Galaxy, with a win over San Jose, could be poised to tie the game again. It could be poised to tie it with a win over LAFC as well. That's way looking forward, if in case you're crazy enough to follow me along on that. Gary, $2 super chat says, rad chat, rad show. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Gary, as always, entertaining the chat room in there with all
I was going to say,
wonderful stuff. You should. I'm not going to mention them because there's too many, but you should go back and read the live chat while you're doing some of this if you get the chance.
Yeah, he's getting some shots for chat MVP. Gary's always in there.
Champion,
in the chat.
champion of the week.
Champion. We're going to get him the belt. We're going to I'll make an Instagram post about it.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk. Predictions guaranteed to be wrong. I'm sort of like sitting here going, like, is it really time? I guess it is. I guess it's time to guess. So you can have the honors on this one.
I'll go
San Jose.
first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of foreshadowed it because I think there's no reason. This kind of goes with my RSL. There's no reason why the Galaxy shouldn't walk away big winners against San Jose. But there's something about playing at Stanford, the new coach, looking ahead to LAFC. I feel like there can be some mental lapses here where it goes wrong. So I feel like this is going to be a draw, but you're going to see a lot of goals. So I feel like a 2-2 draw is something that's going to happen here. Maybe the week off hurt them because they had that momentum and they were going. And then maybe if the haters are right, working Riqui back in is going to cause problems and cause some friction. So I don't know. I just feel I don't have the good vibes like I had last week with RSL.
All right.
There's a correct answer.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to win. They're going to win this game.
Yeah,
that's the answer. They win this game. I think they win it like 3-1.
Okay,
that's my guess. And I really think that this is one of those games where the Galaxy need to sort of assert their authority. You must respect my authority. They really need to assert this domination that they put in there. They have to go in. And by the way, they had a chance to do it against San Jose when at the game at home. They won 4-3, sort of assert that dominance with that, like they did the first game that they played them.
Yeah.
So I see no difference. Here's the one thing. Greg Vanney talked about Stanford Stadium. He said you never know about the field. He goes, you don't know if it's going to be good. You don't know if it's going to be bad because it's not their facility and they don't take care of it. And so it's sort of a question mark. And he goes, and it can be difficult. And he goes, and there's going to be a lot of people there, mostly because they're there for the fireworks and.
Yeah, and maybe the power goes out. I think there's been issues with that stadium and stuff going there. You mentioned it, and the reason why I kind of went with the draw here is the San Jose team has shown that they can score against the Galaxy. So there's also, while as much as they are very winless and at the bottom of the table, there's that mental aspect of, hey, we've scored on them before, and that's something that I think plays into the mentality of the players, and so that's the one thing that does concern me.
Galaxy come out in this game, get an early goal, and then put the pressure on San Jose to react. I think if it's one of those, don't give them hope, don't allow them to be in this game. You have to score a goal early and then possibly score a second one and take them out of the game because you want them to remember that they're the same team, whether or not they have a new coach. They're the same team. They've been losing all year. They're going to lose again, and it's inevitable, and they should just accept their fate for what is going to happen. That's what you can do if you're an LA Galaxy team that is good at controlling pace, that's good at controlling the ball, can put balls into the back of the net, and can keep people off the board. If you're a good team, and you know San Jose knows the Galaxy are a good team right now, you know they're like, why do we have to play the Galaxy right now? You know, I'm sure they've been saying that about every team they've been playing this year too, but like it's real. There's also the fact that this is a rivalry game and you should never count out anything being normal or
always
calm,
wacky,
right? Yeah. So it'll certainly be. They ruined, by the way, Philip says Goonies always die. And I would just like to point out they ruined that movie. Like San Jose's not allowed to ruin that movie. Like keep your hands off the Goonies. That's a great movie.
Fair enough.
Can't wait for my kid to get old enough to watch that and be like, what are you talking? Why is this a good movie? Yes.
Warning. Have I shared this story?
No.
I tried showing my kids the Goonies because they're a little bit older now, and it was a tough sell. It does not hold up as well. Pretty slow. Not a lot of action keeping them engaged. Again, I remember exciting moments from that movie, but it does take a while to get to those exciting moments. So I lost them. I lost them with the Goonies.
Okay. Maybe it's one of those you wait till you're like 15. So that way, like you can have, you can't be just barely on the edge of it. Whenever you need like nonstop action to keep them sort of in it. No, the Goonies is a sit and think piece. Obviously, I mean that's why it won all those Academy Awards. All right. Anything else you want to get to before we get out of here?
Just last little shout out. I know we kind of teased it earlier with Uriel and some of the merch that is dropping. So the funny story that I had, the anecdote is, you get sometimes answers with non-answers. So I reached out to our guy, SKC Sporting Kansas City, and the Portland Timbers made a post today about an archive collection that's debuting on July 16th. It seems like it's either 1996 style gear when you look to, at SKC when they were the Wizards or Kansas City Wizards or Wiz. And then the Timbers obviously have the history pre-MLS, even though they weren't around in 1996. So it seems like it's going to be kind of in that direction. We've seen or heard about teases of a Galaxy third kit and that it may be 1996-ish inspired. So after reaching out to my contacts, I said, would it be crazy to assume that the Galaxy would be part of this drop that's happening on July 16th? And I was told I was not crazy. So that's the information that I have to share.
But I mean, that's just stating fact. You're not crazy. You're a little kooky, just not crazy, right? So
fair, which I'll take. So shout out to our guys on the inside.
Very cool. That's fun. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of third kit rumblings, and everybody's like, oh, when's that third kit? I think one is I don't think there was ever a July 4th. They wanted the white versus black of LAFC and LA Galaxy, and 100% they wanted that. So I don't think that was ever, but it is coming. Like it's coming. It's coming soon after that. So pay
July
attention.
16th. Mark your calendar.
Put it down. Write it down. So so we'll get there. All right, Eric, why don't you tell people where they can find you? We'll get out of here. Let's go.
All right. As always, you can find me on everything at Hammer EV9, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, all that fun stuff. At Hammer EV and the number 9.
All right. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, it's at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com so you can get all the articles, all that fun stuff is right there. Cornerofthegalaxy.com, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple iTunes, any place, Google Play Store, any place you can get a podcast. YouTube, you can go find our podcast as well. So make sure you get there, you check it out. The LA Galaxy taking on San Jose, and the Cali-Clasico coming up on Saturday. 7:30 p.m. is your start time. 7:40 p.m. is your kickoff time on MLS Season Pass. All right, for a big shout out to Uriel Martinez for stopping by, and the LA Galaxy for making him available to us. Big shout out to the Hammer as well. So for the Portuguese Hammer, Mr. Eric Vieira, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.